through, like, one of the big things about creating zombie loyalists is also letting things feel tailored and bespoke to them, right? Hi, I'm Russ, and this is the Memory Makers Podcast, the show that helps you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories. Welcome, gang. Excited to jump right in. No jingle, no nothing. We're getting right into it. Haven't done a book review in a while, and I was actually just rereading Zombie Loyalists by Peter Shankman, and we did an episode about a year ago that covered some of those core concepts, but what I thought we'd do for today is take a little bit of a deeper dive, hit on some of those core, ideas and concepts just for those who haven't read the book or seen that episode, and really take a look at where we can start to create some amazing surprise and delight moments for our guests when they come to highlight that experience, but also create a customer family who will be rabid loyalists and advocate and talk about us when we're not even in the room. And so I'm excited to get into some of that. If you have not read Zombie Loyalists, I cannot recommend it enough. I'm particularly partial to the audiobook because Peter narrates it himself, and he's got a great personality, and you can really tell he's got a passion for what he's doing. But really, this book comes down to exceptional customer service is what is creating those brand advocates for us, right? And those who will organically talk about us and turning them into raving fans like we talked about. But creating those moments for them by guests feeling seen and heard, which is obviously a very consistent, message that we hammer on this podcast. And so where and how can we take these concepts and actually start to apply them towards our guests? And so I've even put together some ideas of what I've seen other operators do, what we've done back in my operation days. And that way then, hey, these are some low stakes ways to try to, dip our foot into this pond, so to speak, and tinker and experiment with new things. And then they can obviously scale up and get crazy and over the top depending on what the situation calls for. But that way we've got some good takeaways of ways of kind of invigorating, our team members, so that way they can see that true North Star of what we're really about at the locations, but also just exceeding the bar for what guests are, commonly seeing set as low for, hey, what we think of as good customer service, these days is just slightly above average. And so what a big impact those can make. And so looking at this book, again, it just reminded me, especially with the landscape of our industry, getting, there's a lot of new players entering into the fold. There's, more crowding in the entertainment market. There's just more stuff to do, not even in-home versus out of home, but even just more concepts that are out there for people to, to experience and try. And so how do we create a really significant emotional tether to those groups that are our ideal customers? And how do we just show appreciation beyond them coming and providing a good time, but helping them realize that we are not just some faceless entity, but a part of their lives. And I think that is always something that we can continue to come back to and just ideate on and see, hey, what are really cool ways that we can move the needle? So with that, I think, one of the things that stands out with this book to me is that it is not about gimmicks. It's about doing small things obsessively and trying to find ways of learning about your guests so that way then you can use that information to make a positive impact with them. And one of the big things, that we'll talk about is a little bit of what is that zombie loyalist and how is that different from like a loyalty program or an email list. And then, like I said, getting into some fun concepts and ideas for us to try out in our locations. So when we talk about what a zombie loyalist is, Peter Shankman really highlights this concept of it's guests that are going to talk about you even when they're not asked, right? So they've had such a positive experience that they are just, they want to share the good vibes that they've had from that experience with others. And so, when we've exceeded the bar or gone above and beyond, and that makes a lasting impression, them talking about that just outside of our walls and on Facebook, and not even just like the Yelp reviews and Google reviews and things like that, but just in their everyday life of, oh my gosh, we went and did this, it was incredible, and they're recalling guests, or staff members and things like that. So making a meaningful connection that is something that stands out to where guests will talk about it after they're gone. The beautiful thing about having zombie loyalists is that these are guests that are also going to be a lot more likely to forgive the small mistakes or the little wrinkles that can pop up. And they're also more likely to bring back other people, and come back more often and bring different folks with them. And so I think we can all agree that having that type of a customer is really, really valuable. And it doesn't take a lot to be able to cross that threshold and really find fun and creative ways to create those moments. So at the 30,000 foot view mark, and these 4 core concepts from the book before we get into some of the examples is, I talked a little bit about it, but we'll highlight it here, is the low expectations gap. So a lot of businesses think that they're good at customer service, but customer experiences can be pretty mediocre, right? Like, hey, nothing went wrong, so therefore it was by default good. And so how do we, get out beyond that so that way we have something that stands out above the crowd? And even slightly exceeding these low expectations can really make a meaningful impact. I think the next core element is empowered employees. And so what are we doing as owners and operators to breathe this into the culture and the expectations of how we serve guests the best? But then giving them different options and resources and tools to be able to go and further engage and do something significant that stands out. And really, and we'll talk about this a little bit at the end, but like, how do we even engineer in some of this quote unquote spontaneous engagement so that way it's manageable and can be done consistently and we can kind of track what the impact is. And a lot of this, it really boils down to the human connection. So businesses that, act like businesses and have that corporate stuffy, kind of presence, that personality kind of acts like a little bit of Teflon where it'll bounce off and things aren't going to be as absorbed. Whereas, so many of the most successful operators that we see infuse their personality into everything from their outbound communications. But then once they're in the store too, like, how do we make sure that our we're hiring empathetic team members and folks, because that can be a hard skill set to train up, but looking for some of those people who have that high EQ and can, really want and look to make a difference. And then giving them this outlet so that way they can do it. And finally, a lot of this just boils down to those memorable moments. And so obviously with this being the Memory Makers podcast, we're drinking that Kool-Aid pretty well. But I think that it's, it gets these people to be, advocates and unpaid sales, folks and people just getting after it for you. So as I've looked through and I've done everything from, kind of looking out through operator groups and talking with some of our different clients and then thinking of some different ways that we can do this. There's a couple of different things that I really love. The first one of an idea that you can try is something like a character pop-up. So if you're doing themed birthday parties and, someone wants to do a princess type of experience, are there local community actors or high school drama classes or things like that where they can have some costumes and show up as a knight for a few minutes, right? And be able to do that. And that can be even like an extracurricular or an independent learning piece that they can do with their high school or college, where you can get these really switched on characters who are coming in for a little bit and just doing something out of the norm. Whether that's superheroes or if it's, any of those types of things, really utilizing some of those local community theater or high school theater or even college theater programs, because you've got amazing talent that's there inherently for you. And it can be this amazing drop-in that you don't even really tell the guests is part of it. It's just maybe, hey, we know that we're rolling out the cake and the pizza at this time. So right before we're doing candles, we're going to, have Sally come in and be Elsa, or the Disney IP non-infringing version of Elsa to be able to do that. And that's a great photo opportunity moment, and something that's really neat that again is a little bit of that Disney-esque vibe without having all of the crazy cost and expense of doing it. Another idea that I came up with, I'm sure that there are other folks that are doing this, but it was, as I was thinking through, like, one of the big things about creating zombie loyalists is also letting things feel tailored and bespoke to them, right? And so it's something that they appreciate that much more. And so what if we did something where, hey, instead of the standard goodie bags or giveaways and things like that have kind of the standard, hey, we do 2 Army Men, Tootsie Rolls, yada, yada, is actually bringing in a little rolling cart with some of those same things and then allowing the kiddos to build their own goodie bags. So that way each individual guest of a party or an event feels like they can actually get the things that they want the most. And you can curate that and kind of, logistically look through it to make sure that somebody's not just doing all of the expensive Nerf gun things, but, you control the selection, but let them, just like a build your own sundae or something like they like at Cold Stone Creamery, it feels familiar, but yet they get it exactly how they want it. A third idea, and a lot of people use this, is just that kind of golden ticket win. So are you having some random upgrades to a family's game card, or offering a free upgrade to a higher package just as a, hey, thanks for coming in today. We'd like to give you, 3 passes on the go-kart track or a game of bowling for free, and doing some of those just random elements that can really, again, stand out. Sometimes I've even seen folks put stuff in like the ticket cranes and other, the ticket rings where, like, hey, if you get this, it's something where it's a special package that they can get the next time that they come. Drive some repeat play on that piece itself, but it's not something that you're necessarily advertising. It just happens to be, oh my gosh, we got this. I was, doing one of my merchandisers, and in the capsule was a free birthday party package or something along those lines, where they maybe thought that they were going for, the Labubu or whatever it is, but now they're getting something way above what they thought. So a really cool opportunity to try some of that even within, either random upgrades or with your merchandisers. I think some other things, I was recently on vacation, and one of the things that I really enjoyed was at the resort that we were staying at, staff members would kind of come out and do, kind of spontaneous group activities or competitions with guests as they were hanging out by the pool. And so taking that same mindset and trying to infuse that, whether that's in the arcade area or in the lobby, where you can have some minute to win it challenges, or even some things like a spontaneous scavenger hunt in and throughout the facility, that then gives prizes to anybody that participates or people that get it at the end. Again, something that's just a little bit different. It doesn't have to be a huge time consumption, but it allows your staff to engage on a deeper level than just being an attendant, kind of waiting at their post. I think a couple of other ideas that as we were curating this list was looking at, do you have surprise performances? So whether that's getting folks like magicians that come through, or balloon artists or musicians that will do kind of pop-up surprise entertainment. And so being able to do that, I know when I was working at Laser Flash, we would do kind of surprise band nights. And so you'd get some of these groups in. It was a little bit later. We would clear out some of the party tables and things and let the band set up. And then they were able to do some of that. It would bring in the bands that performed. They have friends and family that want to come and see that. And so they're going to enjoy some of the amenities that you have to offer. But it's also something really cool for the guests that didn't know that that was happening. And those are obviously things that you can promote in advance in normal circumstances, but keeping that surprise factor is really what helps it be a little bit more of that, special spontaneity infused into it. And I think even looking at things like some of the tried and true singing telegrams to welcome birthday party guests, or if you're doing bachelor parties or having the local show choir or a quartet that you can hire if you have like a really big business kind of private event, having them do a funny jingle or bit around the, that takes some key pieces of information about the company or maybe the boss or this or that, where they can do some satire and some humor that's in there. Again, that's just a little bit different, but feels very tailored and personalized to that group. And some of this, can come from, hey, if we're really driving this around some of our groups and event kind of pieces, and it's built more for those, what are some questions that we can do to uncover, hey, if we're doing a character pop-up, like what's your son's favorite superhero or video game, or, what's your daughter's favorite book, or, kind of cartoon kind of stuff, like finding out some of that stuff in advance, not really telling them what it's for, but then finding some ways that you can infuse that into it, or if it's with your corporate events, and say, hey, we love to do a little tailored surprise at some point in the event. Could you answer, and it's almost like a pseudo Mad Libs, like, can you answer these 5 questions that about the boss or the company, and then, kind of letting the team run with it from there. I think some other really underutilized opportunities are things like, hey, if it's National Donut Day, and you can look online for those, like, national insert name here, day, is, hey, if it's National Donut Day, great. We're going to just bring in 4 dozen donuts, and we're going to give those away for free for the first folks that get it, right? And it's just something that is not a big lift, but it's a little something, right? And really helps bring out the personality of what our staff, are there to do, and help connect with everyone. And then finally, this is one where it's harder and harder these days, but man, if you are going to do some of those golden ticket ideas or a random upgrade for somebody, pairing that with a handwritten card, or if you're seeing a group leave and you want to give them a bounce back, is having those handwritten cards in advance from your management team. Again, it just shows a little bit of extra level of, tender loving care that comes along with being, coming to this location. And so those are some different ideas that I've come across and or thought about as hey, these are really good entry level type concepts that we can try out, that don't take a lot of hard work or cost to implement. And a lot of times it's a tweak on something that we may be already doing, but it's just putting it or presenting it in a way that's a little bit different. And those types of things are really what's going to help, if consistently done over time, really help stand out. And so what I would encourage you to do, if you're interested in trying something like this and wanting to breed more of that, kind of emotional tether with your guests, is then, okay, how do we do this consistently enough? Where are the best opportunities for us to try it? And then really be diligent about, hey, if it's random upgrades, great. But what's the quota then for either a staff member or a mid-level manager to be like, hey, we want you to do one of these a week for the next, 6 weeks, and you have a set list of people, so that way you also know you've got enough saturation with it, but having some performance metrics or scheduled elements to it, so that way it can be a little bit better planned, and just look at that. Because I think if you really say, hey, we want to try 2 or 3 of these things, or if we just want to try one of these things, making sure that it's planned in a way where you're getting enough trials of it to see how it makes a difference, right? And ultimately, I love this type of concept because it's about doing the right thing for the right thing, with the really wonderful added benefit of, because you've gone above and beyond and served that guest, that they are more inclined to share with others what amazing work you and your teams are doing there. So if you have ideas of things that you guys do for awesome surprise and delight moments, we'd love to get your feedback and see what you guys are seeing, or trying, or have had success with, just because, again, that's such a great way for all of us to just raise the bar of what we're trying to do and how we make that more significant impact for the guests that come through our doors. So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode, but we've got amazing episodes coming down the pike. We've got Laura Zorn from Bravos, who's going to be talking to us about utilizing AI across different operational platforms at their location. We're going to be talking with Jerry Marola on how to get a little bit beyond the blueprint from the banks, and what are some of the hidden stumbling points for you new startups that are really trying to navigate that SBA process. And then we're also going to be talking with Craig Buster on how are we driving repeat visits with his experience both at Coconut Bowl Wild Island and now Pins LA, and just where and what he's seen that really moves the needle and how they go about doing that. So really excited for those upcoming 3 guest interviews that we have. If you guys have other ideas for episodes that you'd like for us to touch on, we'd love to hear from you. So be sure to reach out to us via social media. If you liked what you heard today, don't forget to give us a 5-star review, please and thank you. And thank you all so much for being part of this journey with us and tuning into this episode. Shout out as always to Mikey Mike on the ones and twos, and we'll catch you on the next one, Troublemakers.